The play on the field, the court, and the ice is just one part of sports. Behind every game are the people hard at work so we can enjoy the action. They're the owners, administrators, agents, broadcasters, and vendors who bring the games to life. Meet them when you go Behind the Game with Patrick Klinger and Dave Boden.
Welcome to Behind the Game, presented by Blaze Credit Union. I'm Patrick Klinger, president of Agile Marketing Partners. Alongside me, a man who had a legit chance to play in the NFL. He was just missing size, speed, and talent.
Yes, you described the big three.
He's the president of Blaze Credit Union. I can only say that this is the last time, Dave.
I didn't have the intelligence either, so I was a four-tool miss.
But you are retiring in 2 weeks.
That's right. I am retiring, but fortunately not from Behind the Game.
Thank
just
goodness.
From my day job.
I mean, our viewers would be crushed.
Yeah,
if that
I
were
know
the case.
it would be rough. So thank you. Thanks for having me, and welcome to Behind the Game. And I want to welcome our guest, Minnesota Vikings Chief Operating Officer Andrew Miller. Andrew, welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Joining us. It's great. You're now entering your 6th season with the Vikings. Previously, you spent about 14 years, if I have the number right, in Major League Baseball. So just describe a little bit, aside from the obvious, number of games and things, how do you compare the leagues, NFL and Major League Baseball, from your experience?
Yeah, well, thanks again for having me. It's great to be with both of you, and best of luck with your last couple of weeks at Blaze. But baseball and football, I spent 14 years in baseball at the Cleveland Guardians and the Toronto Blue Jays. Grew up loving baseball, playing baseball through college, and then had the good fortune to be able to come over to the Vikings in 2019. And I think the obvious is the number of games. You have 162 regular season games in baseball versus 17 in football. We have 10 home games, including our preseason games. So it is that from a business perspective to have in Toronto, we had 4 million tickets to sell. And my first 2 years in the American League, we led the league in attendance with 3.4 million tickets. That means 20% of your building's empty. And really, half of our games were sold out and half were not. So your whole challenge is how do you sell more tickets to some of those lower demand games without pulling people off of the higher demand games. Yeah. And in football, we have a lot less supply. We have 670,000 tickets at US Bank Stadium. We only have those 10 games, and so that's a very different business equation. I think the atmosphere is different. Baseball, which I love, has a certain rhythm and cadence, and for us at US Bank Stadium, for all of our fans out there, it's a one-of-a-kind atmosphere. It's unique in all of sports. It's an incredible feeling to be at games, and that magnitude of the event is also much different. Yeah.
You took an interesting path to professional sports because the first 7 years of your career were in the investment banking, I think maybe venture capital industries. What compelled you to leave that industry to take on a relatively low-level job with the Cleveland Guardians?
Yeah, I think I do have a unique career path, but I think finance was really the detour for me. I grew up wanting to be a major league player. I also wasn't good enough, and thought as a left-handed pitcher, lightning might strike my arm and I'll throw the ball in the mid-90s, and that never happened. When I got to Cal and started playing, I realized very, very quickly that the level of competition and what future big leaguers look like, and thought much more about how do I find roles around the game that I love. And when I graduated, I was a business major. I loved my classes, and I thought, baseball has been my whole life. I should try something different. And so I went to Wall Street for a year and then back to Silicon Valley in investment banking and venture capital. And it was really the times. I went through the dot-com boom and then the bust in the late 90s and early 2000s. Post 9/11, post dot-com crash, I was laid off from Global Crossing, which was about to file for bankruptcy, and did some small entrepreneurial things with some friends for a couple of years and realized it's time to go to grad school. So that transition to grad school was not thinking I'm going to get into sports or get into baseball. It was much more about, this is the time in my career where I need to go back to grad school. I want to find out more and learn more about the education from a legal perspective. I went to Northwestern and did a JD MBA there. So the intersection of law and business is what really drew me to grad school. And as a first-year law student, thought, I don't need a job for 3 years. I should really think about what's next for me. And Moneyball, the book, had come out. I had read it. I realized that when I was an intern for the Oakland Athletics, that was happening right down the hall from me, and I had no idea. And just thought maybe the world's changed, and I should start exploring this industry I love more. And if it doesn't work out, I'll go back out to California most likely and find a job. And as it turns out, I got really lucky that Cleveland hired me as an intern.
Yeah, it is an interesting path. So now you're in football heavily here with the Vikings, and with the Vikings, you're with arguably, it's probably not even arguably the most high-profile organization in Minnesota. Fans, as you know, fans' moods over an entire week can be based on what happens Sunday, and it's whether it's a win or a loss or how we played. And do you feel as you've moved into the role on the business side that the pressure that comes from that? The Vikings have not been to a Super Bowl in almost 50 years, and there are high expectations. How do you adjust to that pressure?
Yeah, it's a good question. And as an organization, we believe that our mission is to advance the Vikings legacy. And we've inherited 60 plus years of an incredibly rich history, and feel like we're standing on the shoulders of giants across football, as players, coaches, staff members, executives, as well as fans. And our job as the current members of the Vikings organization are to drive that forward. And we do, more than anything, we want to bring a Super Bowl championship to Minnesota. But it also crosses into providing a world-class fan experience for Vikings fans, making a positive impact in our community. Because as the Minnesota Vikings, we are leaders, and we're looked to as leaders in our community, in our state, and we take that responsibility very seriously.
Right, it's beyond just the wins and losses.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And your tenure with the Vikings has been marked with some really monumental challenges. You had COVID-19, of course. You also had to deal with the murder of George Floyd. What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about the organization as you navigated those challenges?
Yeah, I don't think anyone expects to take a job in September of 19 and then 6 months later, the world shuts down from COVID, and then another couple months later, George Floyd's murdered, and really reawakens the importance of human rights and civil rights, both locally as well as nationally and globally. And as a leader, you take a step back, and none of us have ever experienced a pandemic like COVID. Hopefully, never will again. But so you don't walk into that situation and say, okay, here's how I handled the last one. But you look to how have you handled other crises, and how have other crises been handled elsewhere, and what can you learn from those situations. And I think the importance is trying to find the experts that you can rely on. For us, it was other sports team leaders who are going through the same things, members of the medical community, both connected to the Vikings and across the state of Minnesota and nationally, who has expertise in these areas that you can turn to help you make the best decisions that you possibly can, knowing that you don't have all the information that you possibly need in any given situation.
Speaking of the pandemic, as you went through that, obviously for every sport and every activity, it was really strange. Not like anything we have seen before. Were you worried at the time coming out of the pandemic, and have you been surprised at all at how fast fans have come back to sports after the pandemic?
Yeah, I don't think you ever would walk into a situation where you assume you're going to have a season without any fans at all, which we did in 2020. And that's not what any of us live for in sports. That's not what our fans are looking forward to. So it was a very surreal situation to be in US Bank Stadium and then be in other stadiums around the league and have no fans. And so the entire 2021 year leading up to the start of the season, our whole goal was how do we bring fans back to US Bank Stadium, knowing all of the challenges that COVID presented. And we wanted to do it in a safe way for fans, in a way that people would really resonate with. We also wanted to make sure that when we did it, we were acknowledging the fact that in September of 2021, our fans hadn't been in US Bank Stadium for almost 18 months. And we wanted to make sure that was an experience of reopening this incredible stadium that they loved, and to make that experience special and not just open the doors that first Sunday. So I think for me, I expected when COVID hit that we were really already transitioning to a media and content-centric organization. I thought that would continue even further, which it has. I was surprised at just how important it was for all of us to get back into social settings and to get back into the experiences that we love, and our fans demonstrated that. They came back in 2021. We had the 6th highest show rate percentage of our fans that showed up of any NFL stadium. The last 2 seasons we've led the league, and so Minnesota Vikings fans are really passionate, and they wanted to be back at US Bank Stadium enjoying the games that they love.
Yeah.
Professional sports, especially professional football, is big, and it's getting bigger every year. But at its core, it's a business. How do you maintain your passion for the game, understanding that it really is about business and dollars and cents?
Yeah, as a sports fan and as an athlete growing up, that was one of the questions coming into sports. I've now been in the industry for roughly 20 years, and you wonder, am I going to lose my fandom because of this? And it does change, right? You're around the team, you're around the stadium a lot, and so you get to understand how things work and all the work that goes into it. And on the other hand, it gives you a different appreciation. When you're watching the other teams around town, when you're watching the Timberwolves through their playoff run, when you're going to a Twins game, you have a much better appreciation for it. So you can keep the fandom, but you also understand some of the mechanics of what goes on behind the scenes.
So the National Football League, the NFL, seems to be the kind of unquestioned king of sports in America. What do you think, in your experience, what's the NFL done to kind of really take over as America's pastime? A term we've always used with baseball historically, but and really be a constant source of conversation and debate and talk shows and everything really year-round.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it, and coming in from the outside of football, from baseball, it was, learning what football does and how the league itself has operated at such a high level. But as a sport, it's a 365-day conversation. And it's, so much interest in who you're drafting and what off-season, workouts look like, and mini camps and leading into training camp. And, that's something that I think the league has done exceptionally well. I think that they've taken all the different, media assets that have evolved over time, over the course of the history of the game, and really capitalized on, fan engagement and fan interest throughout the year.
Just a quick sidebar. The salaries in the NFL are, particularly it seems this year, are going crazy. I think I read Trevor Lawrence just yesterday signed a contract around $275 million for 5 years. I mean, do you see a point where this sort of begins to level out a little bit, or as the revenues of the NFL continue to grow, so will the salaries?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I think it's really a question of the fan interest level, and the players are really the top of the 1% of the 1%. You think about all the people that love sports and play sports, and they're literally the best in the world at what they do. And so I think that from a revenue standpoint, the engagement from fans, the fragmentation of the media market, and the things that now people have access to content-wise at their disposal at any time, and what things draw people live, right? I mean, it really has become sports. And so I think that's, really a big driver of things, and where that goes is pretty hard to say as we move forward.
The Vikings have been ranked as the best workplace in the NFL by the NFL Players Association, and I believe the Wilf family is widely considered among the best owners in the NFL. Beyond the exceptional facilities, what is it about the Vikings organization that you're proud of, and also that really causes it to maybe be so highly regarded around the league?
Yeah, I mean, we're exceptionally proud of that NFLPA survey, and it is a testament to the Wilfs. They're incredible owners. Their investment in resources, both from a facility standpoint, TCO Performance Center here in Eagan, but also to people, to other elements that are important to providing that culture. Kevin O'Connell, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, they've come in the last couple of years, and the culture that they're bringing, their leadership, has really driven the success of those rankings as well. But I think when I came in here, from everyone I talked to around sports, prior to me even starting, what I was told was the Minnesota Vikings are a passionate fan base, a strong brand, world-class facilities that are essentially brand new, great relationships in the community with business partners, with community partners, with the government, with the league, great people, great culture. And as I came in and you start meeting people in the community, you start meeting people in the organization, all of that's 100% true. And so I think we try and make sure that everything we do is centered around what provides players an experience that's positive, that allows them to be successful on the field, what creates an environment where our staff members, our employees want to come in every day and give everything they have to something they're so passionate about. And what do we do every day that allows fans to have that experience that's world-class, that's second to none, that you can only get at US Bank Stadium?
Yeah.
As Chief Operating Officer, Andrew, you've got to make some difficult decisions about the direction of the organization, sometimes about personnel, staffing. What is the process you go through to make those kind of decisions and help chart the course for the organization?
Yeah, as a leader, you're always anguishing about those types of decisions, because there is so much weight on it. Affects the progress of the organization. It affects people's lives and careers at times, and you don't ever take those decisions lightly. And you want to have the best information you can and rely on experts. So whether it's different functional leads or people from outside the organization at times, who can you rely on to find the information you need to make the best possible decisions, regardless of how difficult they are at times.
The Vikings operate, obviously, as their own organization, but also you're under the umbrella of the National Football League. And a little behind the scenes, how does that work, just in terms of the dynamics between, who's making decisions and where do you have to defer to the NFL and where do you have control? How do you see that?
Yeah, every league is slightly different. I have now experience in a handful of different leagues, including MLS and NWSL, with Wilf's ownership of Orlando City and Orlando Pride soccer. Every league's slightly different, and there's always some give and take between sort of the central league office rights and responsibilities and each of the teams. And I think the NFL has done it exceptionally well. Right, there's a collaborative approach. There's an all 32 approach that has gone back decades. That, to your earlier question, I think has really led to some of the positive growth that the teams, the owners, all respect the fact that really what's important is the growth of the game and the growth of the sport, and all 32 teams will benefit from that, and it leads to a lot of collaborative decision making.
We've recently seen an NBA player and a Major League Baseball player banned for life from their leagues for betting on games. Obviously, the NFL has embraced gambling after pushing it away for decades. Now it's very much intrinsic in the game. What is the league doing to try to make sure the game stays clean? And you don't have those kind of situations that we've seen in Major League Baseball and the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, the sports betting landscape has really evolved over the years. Again, I come from a sport that for 100+ years was really, driven by the Black Sox scandal in 1919 and the World Series being thrown by the Chicago White Sox players. And for 100 years, that really drove a lot of decision making across baseball, which you can relate to. And now the world has changed, and the availability of sports betting online and across states now, given the Supreme Court decision a few years ago, that's really changed. And so I think the leagues have tried to adapt with that, and with that comes, the risks and the concerns of, making sure that there is a high level of integrity of the game and with your players and your staff members. And, what I've seen from the NFL has been a lot of education, as it relates to what are the rules, what are the do's and don'ts, and how do we make sure that we're all, keeping a high level of integrity for the sport.
So in the Twin Cities, here in Minnesota, we have every major professional sports team, franchises. Got a Big Ten university with major sports, a PGA tournament. There's minor league teams. So the competition for dollars and sports and entertainment is kind of intense. So especially, we don't have the largest market, but we have all these components. So how much do you see it as competition with the other teams when you're trying to get sponsorships and fan dollars and that? And how much is you root for all of the teams or try to work together to raise the level for everybody?
Yeah. When COVID hit, within a couple days, Matt Maka, the president of the Wild, called on the other sports teams' leaders. The Twins, Wolves and Lynx, Wild, United, Vikings, and said, hey, none of us really know what this means for us. Let's get together on a Zoom call here Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And for roughly 4.5 years now, we've continued that. And we've moved to every other week or so now. But, I've never been a part of sports, professional sports landscape that is so collaborative. We have such good relationships. We've built such a high level of trust with each other. And so it's a lot of fun because you're working through some real challenging topics at times, but you get to root for each other, and you get to go to the other sporting events and root on their teams, and you know that they have your back and support as well. So it's much more of a positive. We want each other to be successful. We want to see championships come to Minnesota, and I think that makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can speak to that too. I think it is really a collegial environment between the teams, and there is that level of competition, right? Because there's a certain amount of dollars for season tickets and corporate sponsorships and that. But I really do believe the teams are very supportive of each other and pull for them. And it was certainly fun to watch the Timberwolves this year. I'm sure you watched those games too.
Yeah, it's incredible. And yeah, I mean, listen, I think any market, there is some limitation and there's some competition, but we're also fortunate we have a market that's incredible like Minnesota, and the passion of our fans, and the size of the corporate base and the size of the fan base is a real positive thing here.
Hey, Andrew, safety is a huge issue in the NFL. Obviously, there's been a lot of focus on concussions over the years and some of the other serious injuries that take place. It's inevitable in a game like football. But what is the league doing to try to mitigate some of that and keep the superstars on the field?
Yeah. I mean, since the time I've been in the league, what I've seen has been the league really putting an emphasis on player safety and health, whether it is the concussion work and making sure that both from an equipment standpoint, a rule standpoint, players are put in the safest possible position. Turf and a number of other areas of the game that the league has really kind of focused on, trying to improve and making sure is safe for everybody.
So let me go back just a step to your background growing up in college. Cal, you talked about being on the investment side, the capital investment side, and you're involved at at the right time for a lot of startups and high-tech companies, kind of the hub out in Silicon Valley. A lot of that stuff is translated now to sports, and the Vikings and other teams, both probably what you do internally for managing the business and training the athletes and all that, but also fan experience, apps and everything. So how do you see the technology part of the game evolving? And it seems like something that would kind of help merge those two worlds for you a little bit.
Yeah, the amazing thing is in 1999, 2000, Silicon Valley, there were so many different startups that we all looked at. These are going to change the world. And when you look back 20, 25 years now, the world has changed. Yeah. And a lot of the technologies, a lot of the things that we thought were going to come true did. it required some shakeout in terms of the companies themselves at times. And but when you think about the convergence of devices, at the time we had multiple devices for phones and calendars and pagers and all kinds of things like that, and laptops and desktops, and it's all going to be on one. And all that came true. It took a little bit of time for a convergence of bandwidth and content. But if you had said, the de facto, streaming sports, media technology player at the time would have been created by Major League Baseball, with Major League Baseball Advanced Media, that would have been pretty surprising. And yet it became that, and they subsequently sold BAM, to Disney, right? And so when you think about streaming infrastructure, it really came out of sports. And, a lot of the content is sports that people are looking at or were looking at over the last 20 years. And so there is that convergence. And so for my background, for my experiences, I think if you had told me you're going to be working as the COO of an NFL franchise 25 years ago, I would have probably thought you were crazy. But if you also said, hey, this is where the world is going to be, and you're going to be watching football games or baseball games or clips of anything you want at any point, I would have also, probably believed that was possible, but wouldn't have necessarily thought that's where we'd be in 2024.
Yeah. We were chatting off air about the fact that there really isn't an off season any longer in professional sports. One season seems to flow right into the next, and certainly in the NFL, we've got so many off season activities that get so much attention. How do you personally find time to relax and recharge when the league never seems to shut down?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think all of us that work in sports, you're always pushing each other. You care so much about the work you're doing and the people you're doing it with, and you want to be successful. You want to win, on the field and off the field. And, mental health, physical health, family life, it's all more important than sports. And so making sure that you're pushing each other to spend time with your family and to get out and get exercise and stay fit, and make sure that you're doing the things that are important to rest and recharge. And the science of that we've also seen evolve, and we've learned more about over the last decades. And so for us, I think it's important for us to have that time to recharge and to shut down. We shut our whole office down 4th of July week, and really push, like, that's not like a work remote, that's not a go work on the beach somewhere. Let's literally take time, because once July comes, training camp starts, and we're all going to be going. So let's make sure we get a little bit of time in advance of that.
So we got 30 seconds or so left. Let's finish with sports and the upcoming season. Anything you can tell us in terms of predictions and what we should be looking at for the Vikings this year?
I wish I could make you predictions, but I think we're all excited. We're all excited with the offseason we've had, the direction we're going in as a team, what the fans can expect coming into 2024, and I think it's going to be a really exciting year.
Looking forward to it.
Andrew Miller, thanks for going behind the game with us today. Really appreciate it. Fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Dave, thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks
for pointing out my athletic failures.
I do my best. Truly wish you the very, very best in retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching Behind the Game, presented by Blaze Credit Union. We'll see you again next month.